Hey, what's going on, everybody? Jonathan Bailor and April Perry, and we are back in action with another SANE show. What's going on, April? How you doing today?
I'm doing so well wearing my SANE t-shirt. It's amazing. I feel the SANE power right there with me. It's
I, lo-
fantastic.
I love it. The same power. May the same force be with you.
I love it.
So, what is on the docket for today's show, April?
Okay, well, we're doing a mailbag today, and we've got some really good questions that we're going to be zipping through. But the main idea of this mailbag is to help each person who's here with us think about your same questions and think about how can we move forward eating more healthfully, taking care of ourselves, and becoming stronger and happier in the process. So, okay, we're going to start out with some kind of specific questions on exercise. All right. And people who will enjoy this mailbag are most likely people who are already familiar with SANE. So if you have no idea what SANE is, you'll probably want to go to sanesolution.com, go check it out, get a little feel for what it is, and then we can talk more about this. But one of the best things is in The Calorie Myth, Jonathan's best-selling book. He writes about how we can exercise smarter. So we're talking about eccentric exercises. And here's just a question that came in talking specifically about legs, because what I learned from Jonathan is that when we can really work our leg muscles well, that can give us huge benefits overall. So the question came in that said, for the leg press machine, do you have to do one leg at a time? What if we're in a hurry? Can we just hold it at the top of the exercise or do the reps slowly? And same with leg extensions, etc. And saying, I know I need to kind of go look in the book more, but if I could do both legs at the same time, that would be awesome. So help us out here, Jonathan.
Twice as efficient, both legs, two for one. It's shampoo and conditioner in the same bottle. No, so the only reason that I recommend the one leg at a time is because doing it eccentrically, you're lowering more weight than you can lift. So if you lower more weight than you can lift with two legs, you're going to be stuck at the bottom.
Okay.
So there's no it's not one leg at a time because that is one leg at a time is somehow better than two legs at a time. It's one leg at a time because you are lowering with one leg and then it's physically impossible for you to push up with that leg. So you have to use your other leg to push it up. So if
Got it.
if this question may indicate that you may not be using enough resistance, because
okay.
if you can push up with one leg, then you're not actually doing the eccentric exercise. You're doing a standard repetition rather than an eccentric repetition.
Okay, so now I've gotten on the leg press to about 250 pounds. I've kind of stopped there because I've had some ankle issues and you told me not to have one leg do more weight than the other leg. So about 250 is where I go, but I can't possibly lift the 250 with one leg. So I have to get both legs, push it out, and then do you put one leg down while you do that, or do you just kind of lift it off of the little press area?
I like to lift it off the press, like you're saying, because you don't want to throw your hips all out of whack. So the natural position for your body is going to be to have your legs both up on there in the same position, but you just don't want to use one of them to exert force on the way down. It's only going to exert force on the way up.
Okay, I love that. Okay, this is kind of a random question, but what are the ripped people at the gym doing? Okay, so can you just in 2 sentences explain what are they doing? Because as you're seeing people who are super muscular, what's that whole process? Should we even look into that?
Yeah, so the number one thing, especially if this is coming from a man, is they're on anabolic steroids. And I know that sounds like that's crazy, but if you go, I work out at Gold's Gym, which I love. I absolutely love it. And if you look the way some of those people look, I mean, they're on steroids and they're not necessarily crazy bad people.
Yeah.
They're just taking steroids. So that's a lot of people are on steroids. And if they're not on steroids, they're on other, you would be surprised. I mean, I used to be in the fitness industry. I know how these things work. There's a lot of there's a lot of females that snort cocaine. I mean, this is like not pleasant things to talk about, but
it's helpful though.
It really, no one's going to talk about it. And it's incredibly common. And if you see someone who looks like they are getting unnatural results, it's very likely because they're doing unnatural things. Now, not everyone who looks that way is snorting cocaine or taking
We're not going to go
steroids.
start pointing fingers.
Right.
Jonathan said.
So what they're doing likely in addition to those things or in place of those things is there's usually a very high amount of money that's being spent on athletic nutritional supplements. And then when it comes to eating, it's very, very simple. So with females, they're usually eating about 12 to 1400 calories per day, coming from purely vegetables and proteins, 6 meals per day, the same things. I mean, we're talking like a can of tuna and a quarter of an avocado at 3 p.m. period every day, no exceptions, no sauces. You're not eating out. It's counted. You're weighing your food, period. And that's what gives you those results. And with men, it's going to be the same thing. It's just going to be more calories, because usually they need way more calories, where it's going to be 6 meals a day, the same thing every single day, no exceptions, period. They treat it like a professional. Like if you're a professional, this is your job and you do everything you can to be the best in the world at your job. Yeah. That's what a lot of these individuals do. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a criticism. But if you're a professional heart surgeon, hopefully no one at the gym is going to look at you and be like, oh my God, I hate myself for not being good at heart surgery. You've dedicated your life to being a wonderful heart surgeon, and that's what you do. When you see these other people at the gym and they have 3% body fat, they've dedicated their life to that, and that's what they do. So please don't hate yourself for not being them.
Okay. Or even just compare yourself in a way that really isn't fair. I totally appreciate that, because it's true. Sometimes you're looking around, you're thinking, well, they're using the same machines I'm using. Should I be doing something different? Okay. So I think that's great. Next question is food and feeding kids. All right. So we've talked about this in the past, talked about different episodes, but we're going to talk a little bit more. Here's what it says. What are your best ideas for getting lots of real food into little bodies? I better understand now why so many parents resort to non-food. Children are not apt to sitting and eating large portions of any food throughout the day. And it makes sense why bread is so common. It's a quick way to get full. It takes a lot of veggies and quality amount of protein and fats to get full. And even when my kids love something, they don't go back for seconds. I have to make an effort to get a large portion of veggies in my body and every day. Any ideas on how to help kids get their large portions of greens? So they're working on good conversations and questions at the dinner table to keep everyone sitting longer. What are other suggestions? And I know you don't have children at this point, but hearing that, what are some first thoughts that maybe come to your mind?
2 big wins here. One is going to be nuts. Nuts are a really easy way to get calories into your body really quickly, really convenient, don't require any cooking. The other one is going to be smoothies, primarily because it's blended and it's way easier to drink calories than it is to eat calories. So for example, if you're trying to get more calories into a child, you're going to be able to take a little bit more liberty with making these creamy avocado nut butters with a little bit more natural xylitol or erythritol in there. It's not hard to get 1,000 calories in an 8-ounce glass of a smoothie with a lot of healthy fats into it. So and it's delicious. You could even make it really thick and freeze it a little bit and make it like ice cream. I think blending and thinking about nuts and whole food fats is going to be a really easy way to get the healthy calorie count up for growing individuals as well as athletes.
And that's actually on my current projects list, because I told you in a previous episode, I have a daughter who has a really, really fast metabolism, and she's playing sports all the time and she's hungry all the time. And so finding these smoothies, she loves smoothies. So I think it's just kind of playing around with different nut butters, or you talked about coconut milk, and having a variety of different whole food fats in that. I think that's going to make a big difference. So where do you recommend going to find recipes or more ideas to help parents with more of that?
Unfortunately, there's not a recipe book that I'm aware of that's how to eat the most sane calories for your child, because usually individuals are focused on reducing their body composition rather than increasing it. But here's the general rule of thumb.
Okay.
Take things that are high in calories and that are sane. So think nuts, nut butters, coconut milk, put it in a blender, add some fruit, press the power button. It's going to sweeten it with the fruit. I mean, and this will empower you to not say like, oh, I can't do anything because I don't have the list of recipes. I want you to have the flexibility and the ability to have options and then to customize it. Because I could give you a recipe that requires strawberries, and then we say, oh, my 3-year-old niece doesn't like strawberries. So here's what you do. You need protein, we've got vegetables, we've got proteins, we've got fats, we've got fruit. So you could call fruits sweeteners, you could call fats the good source of protein, of calories, and vegetables are of course essential. So if we're looking to just dial up calories, then we're going to look at the whole food fats and we're going to sweeten those up to make them delicious with fruits. So we're going to leverage the whole food fats as a creamy base. So coconut, shredded coconut milk, macadamia nuts, pick a nut, just get started. Throw some water in there, throw your favorite fruit in there, blend it up, try it, and then adjust it over time to find the perfect formulation for your specific scenario.
That sounds so much easier than what I was thinking. And I'm sure we could still Google it. I'm sure there's lots of parents out there already doing it. So I'll take a look, but I love that. Okay, next question. What are your favorite toppings or sauces for vegetables to make them more exciting? What do you do with vegetables? Do you put any toppings on yours?
I don't, but that should in no way influence what you do. So I don't, but you can use butter. You can use bacon drippings. You can use salsa. You can use all natural marinara sauce that doesn't have added sweeteners or high fructose corn syrup in it. Salt and seasoning is good, but a lot of people, it's usually just two categories. That you're either going for a buttery fat type topping, or you're going for a tomato-based topping, which would be a all-natural salsa or an all-natural marinara sauce.
Okay. Now, what about those grill mates? You know, we were doing a little grocery store tour when you guys were down here. We were talking about how some of these seasoning packets that work for meats, you could do some of those with vegetables too. Would you think?
That's exactly right. Seasonings are your best friend. Herbs, spices. The only thing to watch out for certain seasoning blends is make sure there is not crazy unknown substances in the ingredients list. Okay. You can find Mrs. Dash or Mrs. Dash derivatives that are just seasonings, not crazy chemical unknown thing.
Yeah.
So as long as it doesn't have that in that, you should be good to go.
Okay. Okay. Well, yeah. And I'm even thinking things like I have fajita seasoning packets that I use. If I were just grilling onions and peppers, I could do that. Right?
That's exactly right. And when it comes to vegetables, unless you're deep frying them, it's going to be pretty difficult. Anything you can do to get more vegetables into your body within reason. Anyone who's listening to the show is a reasonable person, but pretty much anything you can do to get more vegetables into your body is going to be a net positive for your health.
Yeah. And so I start thinking about things like when I go get Thai food, so there's red curry, or there's like this peanut sauce that's not the sugary one, or with Indian food, there's a lot of different spices and sauces that work with any of those dishes that you could do strictly with vegetables, or work as well if you're adding chicken or something like that too.
That's exactly right. You could even go with a lower sodium, non-MSG based soy sauce. There's really no, one of the cool things about a sane lifestyle is, you know, sometimes we might not be able to provide the exact answers that you're used to getting from exact programs that don't ever work. And that's why they don't work, because life isn't this exact checklist thing. If someone told you, here's the checklist to have a great marriage, or here's the checklist to follow that will handle every circumstance you'll ever face while raising children, you'd say that's crazy. Like, being a good parent is a set of principles and a set of beliefs that you adapt and customize over time. That's how most things in life are. So how do you top vegetables? You don't put toxic hydrogenated oils on them, but pretty much other than that, whatever if you like the taste of strawberries, maybe you puree some strawberries in the blender and put them on top of your vegetables. I mean, I don't know. It's something to experiment with. I mean, you've got this beautiful canvas of foods. We're just saying don't eat stuff that's addictive and toxic. So who knows, man? You could put some desiccated beef liver on top of your vegetables if you really want.
That's from the previous episode, if you're not quite sure what Jonathan's talking about. So funny. Okay, I like that. Okay, next question. I am a teenager going sane alone. My parents support my decision, but don't want to do it themselves. What would you recommend to make this process easier? Interesting. Okay, now, Jonathan, I know that when you were a teenager, you started getting really into eating healthfully, even doing things that were unique from what the rest of your family was doing, right? So you've kind of already done this.
That is correct. Yeah, actually, I got coached on numerous occasions because I wanted to do my own workout routine. I didn't want to follow instructions. I went to a very strict Catholic school, so I had some run-ins due to my desire to do my own thing. But what do you, so first, I mean, maybe depending on how old you are, what I've seen a lot of teenagers have success with is, while your parents may not want to eat the way you're eating, you can make requests for certain purchases from the grocery store, or even,
Yeah.
can I do my own grocery shopping? Is that okay? And the good news is, a lot of, I was saying through college as well, there's various convenience foods. The number one difference is, as a teenager, you may not have your own steady source of income. So you simply may need to ask your parents, don't expect them to be with you, but possibly if they could just financially support your SANE decisions by either purchasing SANE groceries for you or empowering you to purchase your own SANE groceries, hopefully that would really help.
Yeah. And I just add that I don't know of any parent where, if a teenager said, I really want to be healthier and here are the foods I'd like to eat, can we buy more vegetables, or can we buy some of these types of proteins? I don't know any parent who would say, no, sorry, you've got to go eat the frozen pizza. That's all you're going to get. I mean, if the parent has a concern with cost, then the teenager could say, could I help alleviate the burden in other areas, or do some extra things for you around the house to help compensate for that? Or is there anything I can do to make your life easier so that this wouldn't be a burden on you? Parents are, for the most part, that I see, really reasonable and want their children to be healthy. And the other thing I've noticed is that when I have spoken with some parents whose children are making different decisions, whether it's like, I have a really good friend who's a vegetarian, her mom's not a vegetarian, but her mom will go out of her way to help make sure there's vegetarian options for her daughter to eat. And from what I see is that parents typically really want to support their children as they're becoming individuals and as they're making decisions for their own life. And I think as long as the teenager is making the request in a way that's not, Mom and Dad, you guys are eating a bunch of junk and I deserve better, and here's what you better buy for me. You know, you say it like that, your parents are going to get a little frustrated, but you say, hey, this is my goal and here's what I'm working on. How can we work together to make this possible? Then I think that's a really good way to approach it.
And one of the most encouraging things here too is that I think the cost and the financial aspect could be perceived as one of the largest hurdles, but this is actually sometimes one of the most common misperceptions about sane eating, that it costs more. For example, you could eat very insanely at Whole Foods and spend a whole lot more money on your organically grown, locally sourced, grass-fed, hormone-free, insane toxic food bought at Whole Foods, right? You can become really diabetic and really overweight shopping at Whole Foods. You can also become you can achieve a very healthy weight and avoid all major diseases buying only conventional foods, period. Mm-hmm. So I think there is sometimes, when we're saying go sane, we're not saying buy grass-fed, locally sourced Kobe beef only, period. We're saying, you know, make the most nutrient dense choices you can. So even from a cost perspective, I know from firsthand experience that if we don't conflate sane eating with, like, sane eating isn't, you have to buy organic, you have to buy local, you have to buy grass-fed. It isn't that. Sane eating says satiety, aggression, nutrition, efficiency. Those things are not talking about shopping at Whole Foods, period. They're not. So you're not, the request you're hopefully not making to your parent is, hey, I want to go buy these groceries that cost 8 times more than the groceries we're buying right now. It's just a modification of the conventional sources of food that you get at your conventional local grocery store.
All right. I love it. I think that that's good for today. I'm super excited about it. And I feel like these things that we're learning, how to exercise well, how to move forward on our goals and help our families to be able to support us in that, how to get creative with how we're making smoothies, and also recognizing that we're not here to compare ourselves with other people. I think that that's huge. And just one other thing I have to share before we close up. I found this journal. I was cleaning out my bookshelves the other day. Don't they look so great in the back? You can see my bookshelves are so organized. I do that for fun. I know, crazy. Okay, but I was doing that and I found this journal. This is this journal I started, and it was about 6 months before I found SANE. And I was like, this is the first day of the rest of my life. I'm going to exercise and eat healthy. You know, I mean, this is like the journal that was saying, I'm done having issues because I was just stressed. I was gaining weight. I didn't like how my body looked. I was hungry all the time. So this was kind of the journal saying, I'm really going to starve myself this time and it's going to work. But it was so interesting because I looked and found one of my food journals, what I was eating. And this was thinking I was super healthy, but I'm just going to read it to you and just share briefly because this is a huge change. Okay, so I had a spinach smoothie for breakfast with banana and berries. Then I had some oatmeal with raisins and walnuts. So that was my breakfast. So noticing like there was no protein at all in the breakfast, and interesting. Then I had a salad with avocado and just some dressing from the grocery store. But again, no protein at lunch. I had a kale walnut apple salad that was some greens and some fats, but that was about it. Then I had an apple, nectarine, and 3 healthy cookies that were probably made with whole wheat flour and applesauce or something like that. I looked at that and I just thought, oh my gosh, that's what I was eating. That was what I thought was healthy, because as I looked at that, that was probably within my 1,200 calories or something like that. But I don't know. What do you think when you hear that, Jonathan?
Well, I think what I love is that there's a lot of green vegetables in there. So I love that. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. But this really illustrates the why SANE works long term, whereas starvation dieting doesn't. What we would essentially do with what you just described is say, take the oatmeal and replace it with nutrient-dense protein, and then just eat more protein. So everything else is the same, just eat more. So it's not marketing when I say eat more, exercise less, lose weight, and live better, is that we would essentially just replace some of the starches that you were eating with nutrient-dense protein, and you could eat more, and you would get better results over the course of a year, and then 2 years, and over a lifetime than you would if you didn't eat that life-sustaining food.
Yeah, and it's amazing because I look at that and I had some green vegetables. I had some spinach and some kale, but I am probably eating 6 or 7 times as many vegetables now as I was then. I'm eating protein at every meal, so I'm full, and my whole body changes. So my before and after, like this was my before. This is exactly what I was eating, like written down to the date. That's what I was eating in my before picture. And my after, it was just like my body just changed. And anyway, thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. You changed my life. That's why I wear my SANE shirt. I wear it rollerblading all over Corona. It's really fun.
What I love about what you just said, April, and really a common thread I've noticed throughout this episode, is a message of empowerment, where the idea that, look, we have this canvas of foods that we can choose from and enjoy and eat in abundance. And when we do that, it's not about food lists. It's not about always do this, never do that, very specific. It's about something that's going to empower us and enable us to do this for the rest of our life, to live the best of our lives, because we can do any crazy gimmick fad thing for 2 weeks. And we've done that. We've done that for decades, and it hasn't worked. And if it worked, it would have worked. So it doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. So just having these options and this flexibility, and saying that food is our friend, not our enemy, and healing that relationship over time, I think yields some amazing results. So it's always a blessing to be able to share this information. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, so next actions. We are kind of all over the board with this mailbag, asking tons of questions. What would you say is kind of your final advice or final maybe stretch for those listening today?
I do think that SANE smoothies are the lowest hanging fruit way to help with a lot of this stuff. People always ask about vegetables. People ask about, how do I get the appropriate number of calories to my kids? How do I make things deliciously? How do I make things easily? I think the more and more you can become familiar with your blender, the more and more you can get familiar with the paint by numbers approach that we promote on the SANE Solution website, of non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense protein, whole food fats, low fructose fruits, and applying that to a blender just can take your life and simplify it so dramatically. You're not going on a liquid diet. That would be nonsense. But it is a great way to simplify getting in veggies, getting in your whole food fats. If you're trying to help younger kids, if you're a teenager, what are you taking your lunch bag to school? What are you eating for breakfast? It is a common denominator that I'm a big fan of.
All right. I love it. Well, this has been so much fun being together today. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And those of you who are here, hope that you're excited about living your sane lifestyle. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember to stay sane.